Alright, what's going on, everybody? I'm just gonna show you how I'm gonna rebuild this. I'm still not entirely sure if this is the best way, but right now I have a 10mm donut in with half a crafty pad mesh that I kind of rolled out into two halves and then cut slowly, wire by wire with some wire cutters. But the first time I did it, it was really pressed into the pad and was giving me really good clouds, consistent performance. Then I tried a 13mm donut in a 13mm cup with a full pad, and that didn't quite work out. And when I tried to dismantle it, it got all destroyed, looking like this. And I put about a half gram of some North Carolina CBD oil. About lost that. So yeah, I have this sitting in the 10mm cup, and for some reason it is just not working for me. I tried nickel mode, which I started with, that was giving me good performance, couldn't get anything. Tried some custom TCRs like 240 with some PI regulation, got some slightly wispy hits, but nothing like I was getting before, which I would compare to like dabbing on metal coils. Anyway, let's see if I can get this to come apart without messing up the leads. Okay, those leads look nice. So I'm gonna take this half pad, put that over here, and I'm gonna install the 13mm donut and see if we can't get the half pad into that one and get some good performance. And I'll install the recommended TCRs for that one as well. Use this one. And so you can see there, before I screw it in, that's the 13mm donut in the standard 13mm cup. And I'm gonna get everything fully pressed down. Vape Whisperer, I think it was, or maybe Vape Everything NYC, said they lifted the donut a millimeter or two to increase airflow, but I'm one of those few people that thought, the Herc wasn't even that bad with airflow, and, for concentrates, something like a Sayonara all the way open is, unnecessary. So I don't feel like I need to do that unless that would help the vaporizing and the convection elements of the pad. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in wattage mode at 20 watts and see if I can't get that black spot burned off a little bit. If I can get it to glow. Sorry, I'm a little blown out here. iPhones do that. There we go. It's starting to go away. Alright. Alright, we got a cleaner donut there. Now I'm going to take the half mesh that we had from the 10mm pad and let me compress this a little. Try to get it all about the same shape. Maybe loosen it up a little bit too. I'm going to make it face the opposite way. very hard. You can already see when it lifted up and showed the donut there. I might as well show it, how it's already sucked a bit off the mesh. So that's a good sign. Goodness, this thing is so hard to get together. I might have to edit this video, but I might just upload it raw, because it's part of the process is things being all fiddly. Alright, let's see how hard this top cap is to get on. That's the main problem I've had with the 13mm coil dish. Let me make sure this is reading right too. 0.51 ohms on a 13mm donut. That seems to be the correct room temperature. I have to make sure I lock that before firing in temp control. Oh wow, that's not hard to get on that base at all. Very nice. All right. Let me just line up 1 or 2 screws. I'm not going to spend time doing all 3. I'll do that off camera after I see how it works. All right. And I think in the name of science, because the time that I had it working very well was in nickel mode at like 380 to 440 watts or degrees at like 25 watts. I think I'm gonna start with trying that and then try the custom TCR if that doesn't work well. So let me wire nickel resistance. I'm gonna have to reset that. It still thinks this is a 10mm donut. It's an Arctic Fox profile, so it keeps it in memory. I'm gonna say 0.51 as the coil. Lock that. I turn off PI regulation. All right, so I'm gonna try it at 390. So I like to hold it down, give it a preheat and roll it around until it says temp protect, and then oh. I don't know how well that's showing up, but that is a large size cloud or a medium sized cloud, but very thin or vapor, not thick like it's on a coil. But I think that's more combustion than vaporizing. So that was at 390 at 24 watts on nickel mode. Let me take it up to 420 and let it get to temp protect. Okay. I should show you guys the pad now. There we got everything. So yeah, see if I can do this lighting. You see that? If I can get it to focus in right. Yeah, it's that far down from the lip. So this is half a crafty pad on top of the 13mm donut on the 13mm shell on a VTC Mini with Arctic Fox running just standard nickel mode at 390 and then 420 degrees. Let me see. Oh goodness. I get this light moved. Let me just see I usually take it up to 440. Let me do 450, see what kind of production that is. Because I feel on the 13 millimeter donut, the heat is less concentrated, so I might take it up a little higher in temperature to get a good rip, like a group session rip, I would call it. Can't tell if that's showing up through video because I have this resting on a desk lamp where the light is right here, and I think the camera should be like between the light source and the vapor, but let me see if this is better. All right, so that isn't showing up that well, but they're definitely large clouds. They're definitely great flavor clouds, and I would compare it to, I would say, in between a really good long hit on a Hercules and a medium-sized hit from just direct from a coil with, say, ceramic wrapped on it, you know, with a proper soak in. So I put about 0.3 in there, and I hit it a few times on the 10 millimeter, decided it wasn't working quite well enough, and talking on Reddit, so I decided to go to the 13, and it's still not at the crazy performance that I had with my first try with the 10 millimeter. Oh, also, if you want to see, that's what about 10 sessions will make your donut look like. So I would advise, if you're doing this pad method, clean every 2 or 3, no, maybe 5 loads. Just dry fire the donut, kind of squish up the mesh, get it supple again because it seems to collapse a little over time, but also that just kind of depends on your material. If you want it to wick better, if you want it to fall through, you know. So if it's real soupy, unstable at room temp, maybe squish your donut up a little bit, or your mesh pad up a little bit to tighten it up. Anyway, I'd say this works again. It's still not as great as that first attempt, and I really hope I can recreate that magic. Maybe I'll need a fresh pad. Might try something different than the crafty mesh next. But right now, this definitely works. This is definitely a load and go. At least, you know, load 0.2, 0.3, maybe 0.4 at most, if you're careful and don't pull too hard for the first maybe 10 hits. But I'd say, yeah, you can get 15 to 20 hits on a load. Last load I had with a 10 millimeter and half donut, when it was still working well, I had run 3 loads through that. The last one, actually, we kept track. It got us 22 good hits before they became wispy. And then, you know, maybe 5-10 of those, and then it starts to decline in taste. But for the most part, if you do that dry firing and stuff, and scrub the pad from the stuff that builds up the blackness, then yeah, do that every few days and it'll still be fresh for you, and it'll be a load and go tank system. And I got this Reddit discount link, the V3, for $26. Got the crafty pads, pack of 4 for $7 free shipping from Puff It Up, and I got the VTC Mini from efun.top with a bundled in, you know, starter tank for like $15. So far it's like a $45 wax tank setup. That's all ceramic in temp control with custom firmware and, you know, removable 18650s. So my unofficial kind of review of at least this mod is, if you're experienced enough with working with tools, the software of mods and stuff like that, I think it's a great option. And if you're really smart about it, you can get the whole setup for under 60 bucks easy. All right, peace out. All right, so here's a quick video about loading a 13mm donut in a Divine Tribe V3 with half a crafty pad. So I'm just going to take some of this CBD, and I set my device to 300. I usually hit it at 500 to 600. At least with this new mod, I've only tried out a little bit, but we're going to try loading it. So I'm going to warm it up a little, set it to 300, let it be at that protect message for about 5 to 10 seconds, maybe even 15. See if it's a little warm. Feels a bit warm there, so I can start taking this and let the warm pad absorb it. I need to warm it up a little more still. I just took this out of the freezer. That's where I keep my CBD oil. This is really difficult, actually. I might just take this off. It's still cold enough to mess with my fingers, so let me just take off this small grain, and I'm just gonna stick it on that pad. There we go. See that? So that would usually be like the max that you could load into a Divine Tribe at once. But I already have like 0.2, maybe even 0.3 left in here. I'm gonna take this out a little bit and just let this soak in. It's getting a little runnier. There we go, now it's starting to cling to the mesh, which means I'll just take it up a little bit, and still on these settings, not enough to really vaporize a bunch, but just enough to warm up the mesh and get everything kind of clinging onto it. So you just gotta kind of visualize how it sits in there. And little bits of vapor will wisp off, because it does kind of slightly drip on the donut, but most of it is from heating the mesh. So now we can see it's basically like coating or outlining the mesh, and the mesh will progressively become more visible, and that's when you know that it's soaked in and loaded. And then I like to take the top cap after it starts soaking into the wire and just start pulling it all back up. Pulling very light. I just like to do that so that it's all in there, secured, but I don't know if it's entirely necessary. And then you're good to go. So let's go ahead and take this back up to, I'm going to do 550. And what I like to do here is I like to hold the button, preheat, kind of roll it around upside down. I found that works best. And then once it says protect, I'll start pulling slow and then speed up. Oh wow. Shit. A glob fell out onto my desk. Alright, let's take it up to 600. Let's see what the maximum temp control capacity is. Still didn't taste any burnt. Okay, so now I have it in nickel mode at 550, and this is the 13 mil donut on the 13 millimeter base with a crafty mesh half. Alright, so I'm going to preheat it and roll it around upside down. First hit's usually a little lighter. And that's my like 7th hit off of this load. Alright, so here we have the Divine Tribe version 3 rebuildable ceramic atomizer with a 13 millimeter donut installed in a 13 millimeter cup with half of a crafty pad with about 0.3 of CVD shatter loaded in. I have this on nickel temperature control on an EVIC VTC Mini with 30 watts at 600 degrees Fahrenheit for, you know, demonstration. And I got my resistance locked at 0.50. So let me go ahead and show you how I like to do this. I like to hold down and preheat it for like 7 to 10 seconds till it gets to the temperature protect message, and then a little past that, and kind of roll it around and even upside down a little bit to kind of get all that stuff loosened up. Alright, and then take my hit. Tastes very good. I only feel like I really need to do like a 3 or 5 second cooldown hit after every draw, which I usually do with my atomizer anyway, to clear any, you know, vapor that's been produced from the still hot coil or whatever. So my experience has been with the Hercules oil cartridge, the 510 version, a Miracle S, which is in pieces. All I have with me right now is the base. But I had the Generation 1 of that with the Generation 1 coils, and now this. Those are the three load and go options that I've tried out or had experience with. As well as, not the firebox itself, but it does make this claim. I have tried the firebox ceramic coils installed into a ice cubed RDA, which is pretty similar to the design of the firebox, and they claim you can load like half a gram, a whole gram in there, but these are just circa 2012 ceramic coils, just a little smaller, and it's frankly underwhelming. It's not temperature control compatible. I've heard they're going to come out with some, but I don't really consider that a load and go style setup. So let me take another hit off of this and continue with this review. I don't know how well that shows up, but I'm getting pretty consistent clouds. They're thin, and it's not like thick like if you dabbed on a metal coil, but they're still large clouds, and they're large in volume. They're potent. It's good flavor. I would say it matches the Herc for most of my experience with the Herc, and exceeds the output of a Miracle S, which also had very thin vapor, but it was hard to get like a good rip out of the Miracle S, at least in my opinion, without taking it to wattages that will cause your coil to pop, which is ultimately what happened to mine way early in its lifespan. So yeah, things I like about this setup. I like that it's rebuildable. I like that I can access the heating element, kind of like the Hercules, although I think this design is kind of better in a few ways. You don't have to worry about cooldown hits as much. The flavor is on par, if not better, than the Hercules, and the form factor and operation, loading, taking it apart, putting it back together, I think is a bit more intuitive. Compared to the Miracle S, Miracle S has too many threads, and I think one great thing about the Miracle S is there's no real splatter or leaks for the most part, and also it has that coil cap, which I think is really cool. But honestly, I don't consider the Miracle S a suitable solution unless you're immune to taste, because I'm not even like a taste aficionado, but the load would spoil so early because of ceramic chipping off into the chamber. I saw the black flakes when my coil popped, and it wouldn't read, and I had to throw that coil out. Well, it was like completely full, and the coil popped and frayed all into the bucket, which was a total bummer, and spoiled my load that I had in there. And also, a bit of reclaim will always kind of recycle into the chamber, it seems. So it would just spoil like a few hits in, honestly. Whereas this, it tastes fresh. I would say each load I would put in 0.3 to 0.5. Could probably do more, but I don't want to push it. Especially with the 13 millimeter donut versus the 10. Yeah, so it's a high capacity. It's about the Miracle S, a little more than the Herc, I would honestly say. And And yeah, I think temperature control is really the deciding factor on having a good, enjoyable from start to finish wax tank style setup. So, all in all, I got the Divine Tribe from a discount link for $27. I got 4 crafty pads for $7 from Puff It Up, and I got this mod on efun.top for about 15. So for a $45-50 setup, I don't think you can go wrong with this. I think it's a great product. I definitely would recommend the crafty mod if you're looking for a solution where you don't have to load all the time. Thanks.